So I welcome all of you. As you know, Qworld Medical Comics is world's first medical comic studio, which combines the fun and creativity of art and comics to learn the medical concept. So today I will be going through one of the medical comics which we have created is Parasitology Basics Medical Comic Book, a fun way to learn parasites, obviously created by me. I am myself, Dr. Tanmay Mehta. I am an assistant professor at NHL Municipal Medical College, Ahmedabad in India. So let us start with it. So as you know that association between living things can be defined into three types. Now there is a host and there is an organism. Now as you know that both should be benefited, that is known as mutualism. Both are mutually benefited. But when organism is benefited but it does not cause any harm to the host, that is known as commensalism. And there is the third type, when host is always harmed but organism is always benefited, and that kind of organisms are known as parasites, and this kind of association is known as parasitism. So let us learn some basic concepts about these parasites. So what do you understand by the term host? Host is any living organism or living creature which harbors the parasite. And what is a parasite? Parasite is a living organism which receives the nourishment from another organism where it lives. So that is the relationship between them. Now if we classify the parasites, they could be free living parasites which can live independent to the host in the environment, and some are dependent parasites and they can be classified into ectoparasite and endoparasite. So ectoparasite, they live on the outer surface of the host body, while endoparasite, they live inside the host body. Then there is obligatory parasite, which cannot exist without parasitic life, and there are facultative parasites which can become parasitic when they get the opportunity. Otherwise they do not depend on the host, but if given the circumstances or given the opportunity, they will attack the host. Then there are certain which are known as accidental or occasional parasite. For example, there is one parasite known as Echinococcus granulosus. It classically affects dog and sheep, but accidentally it can affect human also. So humans are actually unusual or accidental host for this parasite. So there are many such parasites for which human act as a accidental or occasional host, and such type of parasites are known as accidental or occasional parasites. Then there is a wandering parasite or aberrant parasite. Now each parasite has a specific target organ in our body where it lives, that is known as habitat. But if it reaches to an organ somehow by mistake where it cannot live further, or it dies, so life cycle cannot be further propagated, that is known as wandering parasite or aberrant parasite. The classical example I would like to quote here is Taenia solium. It is a parasite which is having habitat in the intestine, but once it should release the egg, then this egg should be taken by pig and the larval form should be formed in the pig's muscle or pig's tissues. But instead, if we ingest these eggs by mistake, humans, then this larval form cannot continue their life in human tissues. So that is an example of wandering parasite or aberrant parasite. Then some of the parasites, they enter in our body for a very short duration of time. We consider them as a temporary parasite, while some may remain in host for entire period of their life, and these are known as permanent parasites. So this is actually the summary of what we have talked so far. So we have talked about three types of association between living things, that is mutualism and commensalism and parasitism. The basic terms we have learned: what is a parasite, what is a host. We have also understood different classes of parasites, that is what is a free living parasite, what is an ectoparasite, what is endoparasite, what is facultative, obligatory, accidental, wandering, temporary, and permanent parasite. Now this here describes the zoological nomenclature of the parasite. The highest one is the phylum, in which there is subphylum, then there is superclass, class, subclass, order, suborder, superfamily, family, and finally we have subfamily. So yeah, it is a taxonomical thing, but the main concept I have tried to deliver in the graphics, as well as I have summarized them here. So we have talked about the parasite. Now let us talk about the definitive host and intermediate host. So hosts are of mainly two types. So definitive hosts, they are usually humans, and they, if parasite, they are usually of two types. They are unicellular or multicellular. If they are unicellular, their sexual reproduction usually happens in definitive host, and if they are multicellular, the adult worm, they usually resides in this definitive host. But the intermediate host, on the contrary, it shows the asexual production, and the larval stage, they are usually harbors by the intermediate host. But as I've already told, that humans are usually the definitive host, but there are certain exceptions, and this is usually frequently tested on different examination. That can you tell me where humans can act as an intermediate host? So for example, the classical example that I would like to give is Plasmodium species, which causes malaria, for which the female Anopheles mosquito is a definitive host, and humans, they are intermediate hosts. Same goes for Babesia, Toxoplasma, Spirometra, Taenia solium, Taenia multiceps, Echinococcus granulosus, and Echinococcus multilocularis. So yeah, so that's all for definitive and intermediate host. Third type of host, I have already given you a hint while accidental parasite discussion, that sometimes accidentally they enter into an unusual host. So that parasite is known as accidental parasite, and this host is known as accidental host. Then there is a third type of category, which is known as fourth type of category. Sorry, my mistake. That is known as a paratenic host. So paratenic host is a host which also known as carrier host or transport host. That means it only carries the parasitic form, but it does not undergo any development, or it does not undergo any kind of change or replication inside that host. Parasite just remain viable. For example, for Entamoeba histolytica, which usually causes dysentery, that is bloody diarrhea in humans, their parasitic form, that is usually the cyst, they are carried by the cockroaches, but there is no morphological development that undergoes in the cockroach. So cockroach may act as a paratenic host or carrier host for such parasites. So again, the summary. So we can classify the host into four categories, actually five categories are there: definitive host, intermediate host, paratenic host, accidental host. There is a reservoir host, in which it continuously having the parasite, and it is usually the source of infection, especially in endemic areas. Then we have talked about parasites which targets human as intermediate host, right? So Plasmodium and Babesia and Echinococcus granulosus, they are classical examples of this. So we will continue this session with nomenclature of parasite, and further in the next part. If you like this presentation, do subscribe to our channel so that you can get regular updates on this kind of videos that I make from this medical comics. If you want to buy these medical comics, you can log on to our website, that is qworldmedicalcomics.com, and you can purchase them from Amazon, Flipkart, in ebook format, as well as in paperback format. So I will really appreciate your feedback. How do you like, what do you like about this thing, what we can improve to make this more interesting, because the basic idea is to just to create an environment where we can learn these things in a more fun way, in a more comical way, so that it sticks to our memory and we have a better recall and better understanding of the concept. So thank you very much for your time, and see you soon in the next session. Thank you.